Karmic Margin Call project. That is where we kind of have our public fellowship circles. So I'm going to take a moment here. So, okay, so I'm going into presentation number 2 today. And that is about fellowship establishment. This is what we are focused on primarily this year. I often say if we don't have fellowship, if we don't have the relationship, we don't have anything. Without fellowship, there will be no time bank. Without fellowship, there will be no reverse market mechanics. Without fellowship, there will be no equal partnership economy. There will be no regenerative economy. And unfortunately, our true potential for saving lives goes untapped. So it first starts with us as an individual communicating effectively with just one, maybe 2 other individuals in a small group or in a one-on-one session. That's where things really happen. I mean, it's nice. It's really nice to think that maybe someday you might be speaking in front of thousands of people or millions of people, but it starts with you and your partner. You know, I honestly believe this. The center of the universe is not at the Vatican. It's not in Washington. It's not on Wall Street. It's not Hollywood. The center of the universe is right where you are, and also right where the person you're communicating with in a heartfelt way across from you. That is where the center of the universe is. And in fellowship, we cultivate that sense of priority within your circle. So let me talk about this year. This year, again, I'm creating a documentary film which will focus on the first 16 people, mostly about the first 4 to 8 people who really get involved with this project and establishing those relationships, exploring the why. Again, my why is there's no reason why we together can't save 9 to 10 million lives a year. We just have to open up. And documentary film will kind of chronicle my why and also the whys of the partners who first stepped forward this year, who want to be a part of that project as well too. And we start the 2x2 trend. So I'll talk more about the 2x2 trend in my final presentation today. But really what that means is every single individual is responsible for doubling the effort. And how do you do that? By focusing on your partners, finding the people who believe what you believe. So being an owner of a time bank is not about selling. It's not about convincing people. Maybe there's a little bit of mind changing, having the deep dive conversations to help facilitate and educate people on how to make decisions that are more congruent with who they are as an individual, what their purpose is. But the 2x2 trend is really about placing the emphasis on your interpersonal relationships with those who are closest to you, those who you trust. Because if you find someone in your life that you trust, that you can spend hours with as well and have the time just go by like nothing, you've already succeeded. I believe then it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before you're taking your equal share of the equal partnership economy, which will be, I almost hesitate to say that, but will be a 7-figure return. So, stick with me, and I'll explain more about that in this presentation and in my presentation in 2 weeks with the 3 barriers. So our goal this year is very, very conservative and very doable. We're looking to just establish 32 core fellowship members this year. And these are people who are interested in taking a little bit of a leadership role in the establishment of this time bank. These are people who resonate with the message that we're not doing this to make money. Yes, there will be a lot of financial resources at our disposal once this gets going, but it's really about saving lives and deepening the quality of life on this planet. Those are the people I'm looking for. And those are the 2.5% of the population that I'm looking to connect with: the influencers, the change agents, and the and the thought leaders. Those are the people I'm looking to connect with this year. Again, I know this video, this presentation is not going to go out to 1 million people. My understanding is that the big tech companies are limiting this message. So I'm looking to reach, the 2.5% of you, that resonates with that idea. And we're looking to just log 640 hours. We're in March, we're already at 600. So that goal is going to be attained very shortly, probably this month. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about fellowship. And when I say this, please understand this is just my personal experience. I'm opening up to you now about what I've experienced in fellowship. And your experience might be completely different, and that's beautiful. Your experience with that and my experience with that, if we come together and have a real conversation about that, then that's productive. So I'm going to offer this information today to kind of just challenge your thought a little bit, to help you to look at your relationships, look at your personal relationships, and ask yourself, well, is this true? Is this not true? And ask yourself, what action does this inspire? Okay. So a fellowship that is consistent is usually about 3 to 5 members. The previous times that I've given this presentation about fellowship, I had made the comment that 3 makes a pretty good therapy session, where you can express yourself, and people will pretty much show up because they're getting that individual attention. 4 people will be productive. You will take tangible steps forward towards whatever goal that you're setting for yourselves. 5, when you get to that 5, usually there's one person who kind of feels like the 5th wheel, and they're going to be inspired to maybe step away and do something else. And that's okay if they do. They can start their own fellowship as well. We honor that. Although I'm questioning that assessment now. Our core fellowship has grown from 4 to 5, and we're doing quite well, accomplishing things at 5 people. So I'm questioning that. I'm reassessing that comment. But I do think it's important that if you do establish a big group or a big fellowship, meet once a month or whatnot, but contain a smaller group, a really focused group of 3 to 5 people that might meet every week or every other week. I think 3 to 5 people is good to meet every other week, and then establish a one-on-one relationship where you meet every week. The success of this initiative is where you can give and take, where you can participate as a member, and also where you initiate. So what really helps the 2x2 trend, where we double the initiative every month or whatever period that we, every quarter or whatever period that we can assess, that is driven by you personally participating in a fellowship where maybe someone else is facilitating, or maybe the group kind of facilitates itself, but also a fellowship where you're the initiator, where you are setting a goal and doing the deep dives with your partner based on a specific ideal that you're focused on. That might be very general at first, but then the more you have the conversations, the more it deepens, and your group might become smaller, and that's fine. That's great. We celebrate that. So all the time you spent in fellowship is accredited hours in our time bank as service provided. And also those relationships that you're developing will lead to service hours. For example, one of my fellowship members, Nefertiti, and I, we co-founded a theater company. And the 4 members of that theater company are also member owners. So we spend, well, just in rehearsals alone, we probably log about close to 6 hours just in our rehearsal process for doing a play about suicide and bullying that we are currently touring with the mental health association, the mental health industry in New Jersey. So all the time spent in rewrites, all the time spent in rehearsal, all this time spent in meetings are all accreditable hours within our time bank. So a successful fellowship, you've succeeded if you are able to hold it together, and that's okay. Sometimes there's times where you're at odds with each other, but if you can maintain 20 hours of service over the course of a year, in my opinion, you have succeeded greatly. So that's 20 hours that's taken out of the extractive economy and into the regenerative economy. So our core fellowship has been meeting for about 9 months at this point, twice a month. So we've logged over 30 hours already just as per individual, from that core fellowship effort. And that's why I can talk about fellowship, because that's where my experiences come from, was from that core fellowship. And speaking of that core fellowship, here we are right here. On the top left is Marta Reese. She and I kind of initiated this time bank. We both were producers for a defunct company called New Century Television. So we bring a lot of creativity to this initiative. She and I meet every week. She's my co-producer on the film. So, we generate a lot of creative content based on our partnership together. Down on the bottom left is Parmjit Nahil. She's from the UK, and she has been instrumental in bringing our initiative internationally. Another core fellowship member who is not pictured here, Trey Ashley Guerin, came to us through Parmjit, and we're working on all kinds of wonderful initiatives now to work within the system, work within a lot of the nonprofit or the non-government organizations to help people understand this concept of a regenerative economy. And Nefertiti, I told you about earlier, she's the one on the bottom right. She and I co-founded the Not On My Watch production with Janet Berkowitz as well, where we do performance and workshop discussions around bullying and suicide. So we're doing things that we love to do, and which brings meaning. And we talk about what we do with each other every 2 weeks, and we rotate facilitators. So one session I will facilitate, the next Marta will, the next Parmjit will. So this idea of rotating facilitators is something that I'd like to impress upon you, that it helps and that it works. So there are 3 types of fellowship. The one is a fellowship about a fellowship, where you get together and you're not quite sure what this is about yet, and that's okay. There's this time where you're trying to find your personal why. And when you find your personal why, and you help your partners find their personal why you do things, why you want something, what is your life purpose, the more you start to become coordinated in finding out what it is your fellowship is about. And if it's a fellowship about a fellowship, then it might just mean working through that confusion for a little bit. And by rotating facilitators, it gives you a chance to explore. I think part of the extractive economy, what makes an extractive economy dysfunctional, is we don't give each other the time needed to really find our why. So that's what a fellowship is really about, is helping each other find your purpose. Regional focused fellowships. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but that's where you focus on a specific region. It could be a community, it can be a town, it can be a state. But it's also kind of a focus on helping local government understand needs of the populace. I think government and politics have kind of lost touch in what the typical, there is no typical, what we think of as the common person, what their needs are in order to thrive in society. So our regional focused fellowships really kind of helps the local level have these conversations like this to understand how a regenerative economy works. And then there's niche-based fellowships where out of these other types, out of the fellowship about a fellowships and out of the regional focused fellowships, you develop the small niche-based fellowships that focus on a specific task. Um, our core fellowship, I think, is about now implementing this, this time bank. We don't have really any constraints locally. We have members from all over the world, and we're talking to other members, potential members from other countries like Africa, the Netherlands, Australia. So this virtual services time bank doesn't really have a jurisdiction, but we have niche-based fellowships focused on how to educate people about these three pillars of socioeconomic stability, like fellowship. We also focus on implement the business plan of generating $1 trillion of revenue within 5 years. So there we go. So if you would like to sit in or contribute to one of our fellowship discussions, go to meetup.com/karmic margin call. Every month we have a new conversation around a different topic. We're trying to get some consistency around that where we'll have a conversation and we'd like that conversation to spark what we focus on the next conversation in the next month. So the first month we talked about reuniting the country, reuniting the United States of America. How do we do that? The second conversation we had was about care. How do we show people we care? How do we accept care in our interpersonal relationships? Our third month we talked about we talked about social justice, and we used a specific method for that called the question circle. Again, this month we're talking about social media and what a lot of people don't know that they don't know about the business plan of social media. And I let people know, take a look at the film, The Great Hack. Take a look at the film, The Social Dilemma. Let's have an honest conversation about that. And in that conversation, we'll get clearer about what the next step forward is. So let's talk a little bit quickly about fellowships. Again, we rotate facilitators. I think that helps develop the mindset of being able to both participate and initiate fellowships. If you're coming regularly and participating in a fellowship that welcomes you, you'll feel comfortable and confident to start initiating your own fellowship as well with people in your life already that you trust or that you're developing trust with. That's how the 2x2 trend begins to grow, where we double our efforts. And the goal is to double our efforts every month. So by the time we get to 2020, your two will become 4 will become 8 will become 16. And this, this reciprocity where everybody is kind of like at the center of their own, larger banking organization. So I'm going to talk quickly about the 6 principles of collaboration. I think the key to fellowship, the key to having a successful fellowship and a consistent fellowship is in kind of doing a self-check and understanding these 6 principles that I'm going to introduce to you. For instance, in participating in a fellowship, you get to practice generous listening. So that means kind of putting aside your personal agenda for a moment and really being present to what your partner is communicating, what their wants are, and being mindful of how your agenda or your thoughts kind of integrate with theirs. Curiosity is a big one. I've been finding in my personal journey in the last couple of weeks, the more I become curious, the more I'm able to step away from prejudgment or prejudice. So coming to conversations with a sense of curiosity helps me to understand and facilitate my own education process. And I'm learning every day. So there's this Taoist belief that if you approach a problem not as a problem but as a question, you become curious about it. It gets you away from fear. It gets you away from a fearful reaction, and helps you to understand someone that you might not agree with. So curiosity is a big one. Coachability. So when you're participating in a fellowship, You can allow someone to introduce their world to you, and that helps you see things in a different way. It'll help you make different decisions. You're being coached. Um, so yeah, so coachability is a big one. Now, when you initiate, and again, I think you practice all 6 of these principles, whether you're participating or initiating. But from my personal journey, when I have initiated these principles, I found became really, really understandable. Committed speaking, speaking from your heart. And that helps when you're rotating facilitators as well. You speak, from a very real place, from a vulnerable place, and that's very powerful. It's how I kind of came to the realization that this was not really about money anymore. This was not about making money or stopping people from abusing their power or their money. It's about saving lives. When it comes down to it, when I speak from my heart, this is really about saving lives and really deepening the quality of life that we're not given naturally by an extractive economy. The world of corporate, of government, of business. If I speak from my heart, I think they're speaking from their heads, so that it's all about control and all about fear. But when you speak from a place of, I genuinely want to save lives and deepen the quality of life, I find that there's really no competition for that. There's no reason to attack that. Um, so we practice a lot of committed speaking with that generous listening. Mutuality, being able to express yourself openly. You start to express your needs. You start to hear the other person's needs, and you create that mutuality, that reciprocity of being able to meet those emotional needs. And when your emotional needs are met, you can you can meet the needs of society. You can begin to meet the needs of society. Energy awareness. And that comes back to emotional intelligence. Really being able to understand your own emotions and understand the conflict and emotions of someone that you disagree with. I'm going to go into that a lot more with the 3 barriers presentation. But I'm going to just briefly say that most people, unless they're really doing the hard work, they're doing the deep work, introspective work, most people, especially our political and corporate leaders, are only functioning at a 5-year-old level of emotional awareness. That's a very triggering statement. I get that. And that's some of the conversations we want to have, with our public leaders. That's going to take a lot of bravery. All right, so fellowship about fellowships also explore potential niche fellowships. So as you're getting to know each other and taking this journey together, you create a fellowship about with a specific focus. I probably participate and initiate about 10 fellowships at the moment. One of them is starting to focus on using dramatic skills, acting skills, to be able to express yourself authentically. So we have 3 of us that meet every 2 weeks. We're going to have a 4th member tonight when we do that fellowship. Where we just use acting skills and improvisation skills to express ourselves. So that's the only agenda, and that's our niche. So if you're interested in exploring something like that with me, let me know. All right, let's talk a little bit about regional fellowships before I go into my final presentation this morning. I say tonight, it's this morning. It's 6 in the morning? What time is it now? All right, so let's talk about regional fellowships for a moment. So I am a member of a time bank near me. I live in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Neighboring community is Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I'm involved as part of the board of the local Phoenixville Time Bank. I'm also part of the Transition Town Initiative there in Phoenixville as well. So I encourage our members to get involved locally with what's happening. Get to know what's important to your community. So let's talk a little bit about regional fellowships. Again, these are just ideas to help you kind of become a part of the community and start to Introduce the information that will save lives on a global scale by acting locally. So I think it's very important. We're starting to get to this in our transition town and in our Phoenixville, our time bank and our transition town initiatives. What are each individual's priority? Getting back to the why. I met someone in the last couple of weeks who, with a marketing background, who's getting involved with our time bank and our transition town initiatives. Her name's Jamie Parker. She's helping all of us kind of get focused on our individual why, so that we can develop, a more powerful vision and mission statement. So that we can really kind of focus on what it is that's personally meaningful to us, so that we can commit, to our community initiatives. Start a fellowship about a fellowship. Even if you're not sure yet what you want to focus on, start to have that conversation. Get together with 2 or 3 people that you genuinely trust and talk about trust. What is it about trust that you can deepen? Again, our mission is to help develop the interpersonal relationships around trust. So just make a commitment to each other to talk about what are your lives about and what are you committed to, and what is it going to take for you to trust yourself to take the next step forward. And you can do that within your community as well. Explore potential niches. There's niches that you may not have any interest in whatsoever, but sometimes exploring them in a fellowship within a fellowship will enhance your commitment to community. As an example, as part of the transition town effort in Phoenixville, I get to be exposed to a lot of permaculture, a lot of gardening, a lot of landscaping type of initiatives, something that I don't really have an inherent interest in. I'm more interested in how to apply technology to help everybody benefit. But I'm starting to take a little bit of an interest in that, and starting to flirt with the idea of growing my own food. Something I've never traditionally been interested in, but I'm finding a certain sense of satisfaction exploring those skills. Again, as you develop within the community, meet once a month or so in the big community. Our board for the time bank meets every week. The transition town core team meets every week, but it's very important to meet in those smaller groups every other week or so. For instance, the transition town social media team, I think we started with about 6 or 7. It's starting to dwindle down. Last time we had 4 meet, and we're starting to have those important conversations about what we want from this initiative, why we're doing it. And again, reach out, participate, look into your local nonprofits. If there's not a time bank or a transition town near you, maybe you can initiate one, you can start one. So that's fellowship about fellowship. And just identify the common concerns. What are the common concerns with the individuals in the region? So again, using my example of Phoenixville, the common concerns there seem to be, how do we make things more sustainable, ecologically friendly, and how do we take care of our earth? That's what's really important to the people in Phoenixville is how do we put back into the earth after we've taken? So that's a little bit of a glimpse inside my local world. All right, niche fellowships. Here's the keys to success. Identify a topic. So I'm going to jump back, and the niche fellowship that I've kind of created around this business plan of how to create a regenerative economy through reverse market mechanics. I'm identifying a topic, and I'm identifying the topic of how do we generate $1 trillion of revenue within 5 years. That's what the business plan is all about. So create a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, what's relevant, and time-based. So when you create a niche fellowship, try to have an end goal in mind, work from the end and work backwards. So specific, specific goal is really to create $1 trillion of revenue within 5 years that will kick off a regenerative economy, creating equal partnership and economic equality. That's very specific. The specific goal this year is just to start that conversation and build a core fellowship of 32 members by the end of this year. Measurable, there you go. So the measurable is we're going to look for 32 by the end of this year and start the 2x2 trend. So we're going to start to measure how long it takes to double our efforts. How long does it take to go from 32 to 64? How long does it take to go from 64 to 128? If we can do that every month, we'll easily reach 1 million within 2.5 years. So that's probably 3 or 4 years in our 5-year plan. So attainable. So focusing on the attainability. It's very attainable to participate and then initiate a fellowship within this, time bank. So that's where we keep it attainable. That's how everybody takes ownership of the 2x2 trend and growing the regenerative economy. Relevant? Well, it all comes back to relevant as to whether or not you know your why. For me, what's relevant is whenever I do something now, I ask myself, is this going to save a life or is this going to take a life? So if that's relevant to you, then we're creating relevance together. To me, creating an equal partnership economy and talking about ideas. Again, this is not the way, this is one way. And if we can bring your way or bring other people's ways to the table and we find the correlations, not the contradictions, we build relevance. So that comes back to your why, your personal vision and mission. Time-based, well, our time-based is 1 year, 32 core members. After that, we're looking to make the goal of doubling our efforts every month. So very time-based. That gives you a little bit of an insight into the SMART goal of the Karmic Margin Call Project in effort to establish a regenerative economy, saving 9 to 10 million lives in the process, and creating economic equality. You can create mutuality through 3 questions. And we've had a lot of fun with these questions. Is that what do you have to share about a topic which may not be understood? So I would ask you about you. If you're a thought leader, a change agent, or an influencer, what do you have to say that most people don't understand? You'll start speaking from your heart. So speaking to you as an equal partner, what I feel I have to say is that time is exploited. In a later presentation, I will go into the specifics about how that time is exploited. But people don't understand that there is a much bigger economy available to us. We're talking about quadrillions of dollars where cryptocurrency, might play a role in that. I don't know yet, but a time-based economy is infinitely more valuable and makes us infinitely more valuable than this $277 trillion debt-based economy. So we are infinitely worth more than we've been led to believe. And that's what I have to say that I feel people do not understand. You personally are exponentially more valuable than you've been conditioned to believe. How do I envision each member supporting the SMART goal? So, so that really comes after generous listening. So the question becomes, how do I envision you potentially supporting this effort, or how do I envision myself supporting you based on what I know about you? So I'm gonna use. I have a specific example of someone in my mind, someone who is my coaching mentor. I would say the way I see myself supporting her is to help her understand that she's already accomplished the big goals, the millions of dollars, the thousands of clients. What I have to offer is exploring the exponential value of going deeper in a relationship. And that's scary and that takes courage, but I'm willing to hold your hand, through that process if that's what's needed to really kind of explore what are the barriers of trust. What are the barriers of trust? So yeah. And what would she potentially offer, to this supporting to this goal is just to be present, to already offer the best of what she's already done. She's written books. I'm using some of that material now to help translate the conversation from a marketing perspective to an interpersonal perspective, so that our personal relationships unlocks the exponential return, the compound interest, where you can literally make millions of dollars by having deep conversations. So, so that's how I envision each member supporting this goal. I'm using this as an example. I'm kind of doing a deep dive within myself right now, but when you're with your partners, ask, how might I better support you? And the other, you can ask, how might you better support me? And what's real about that? What is the next step? Okay. What can you do in the next 24 hours to create forward movement? Well, what I can do in the next 24 hours is upload this workshop, make it available, and I have maybe about 3 or 4 people that I want to share this entire package of content with, who I think of as change agents and influencers. So I'm willing to upload this and commit it within the next 24 hours. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, change my battery, and we'll go into a time bank implementation and reverse market mechanics as the final presentation.